The massive hall stretched before Admiral Jake Morrison like a cavern made of crystal and light. 247 different species sat in their designated sections, watching him with eyes that ranged from curious to openly hostile. Jake stood straight in his formal uniform, feeling the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. Beside him stood Commander Kate Sullivan, her face calm but her hands clasped tightly behind her back. They both knew this was the last chance to stop what was coming. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for 37 years now. 37 years of being the newcomers, the primitives, the species that barely qualified for membership. The other races looked at humans and saw weak creatures from a backwater planet. They saw limited technology, modest military forces, and a species that seemed content to stay in its corner of space. What they did not see was the truth. What they could not imagine was what humanity had deliberately hidden from them. Jake took a step forward, and the murmuring in the hall quieted slightly. The Vextar ambassador, a creature called Zelmoth who stood nearly 3 meters tall with a body covered in gleaming chitin, clicked his mandibles together in what Jake's translator identified as amusement. The Vextar Confederation had been pushing into human territory for 6 months. They had attacked colony ships, captured human settlers, and treated Earth's protests with complete contempt. They believed humans were easy prey. The words Jake was about to speak had been approved by every major government on Earth. Every president, every prime minister, every council leader had agreed. This was not a negotiation. This was not a plea for help. This was a warning, the last warning the Confederation would receive. Jake's voice carried through the translation system, reaching every ear in the chamber in their own language. We stand before you today to deliver a message to the Vextar Confederation and to all who witness these proceedings. Humanity has been part of your community for nearly 4 decades. In that time, we have shown restraint. We have limited our military capabilities. We have presented ourselves as a peaceful species, seeking only to coexist with our galactic neighbors. Laughter rippled through several sections of the hall. The Krill delegation, a group of multi-limbed beings who controlled a significant portion of galactic trade routes, made dismissive gestures. Even some of the species that Earth considered friendly seemed skeptical. Jake continued without acknowledging the interruption. What you do not understand is that our restraint was a choice. Our limited military presence was deliberate. We have been holding back because we remember our own history. We remember what happens when humanity stops restraining itself. We remember what we are capable of when survival demands it. Kate leaned slightly toward him and whispered something too quiet for the microphones to catch. Jake nodded once. The next part would either save lives or condemn millions. There was no middle ground anymore. Before we joined this community, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We fought wars that scarred our planet. We developed weapons that terrified us. We created technologies that we barely understood and could hardly control. When we finally achieved peace, it was fragile and hard-won. When we met you, when we were welcomed into the galactic community, we made a decision. We chose to hide our most dangerous capabilities. We chose to appear weaker than we were. We did this because we wanted to be accepted, not feared. The hall had grown quieter now. Some delegates were actually paying attention. Others still looked amused or bored. Zelmoth remained motionless, his alien features impossible to read clearly even with all of Earth's cultural databases at Jake's disposal. For 37 years, this strategy worked. We traded with you. We learned from you. We shared what we could of our culture and science. We hoped that by showing restraint, by proving we could be peaceful, we would earn respect. Instead, we have been treated as prey. The Confederation has attacked our colonies. They have enslaved our people. They have ignored every diplomatic protest, every attempt at negotiation. Jake paused, letting his gaze sweep across the assembled delegates. So we come before you now with a final warning. The Vextar Confederation will withdraw from all human territory within 72 hours. They will release every captured colonist. They will pay reparations for the damage they have caused. If they refuse, the restraints come off. And you will all learn exactly what humanity has been holding back. The silence that followed lasted perhaps 3 seconds. Then Zelmoth rose to his full imposing height. His mandibles spread wide in what might have been a smile or a threat display. The translator rendered his words with perfect clarity and obvious contempt. You dare to threaten the Confederation? You whose colonies burn while your fleets hide behind your moon? You whose people beg us for mercy that we will never grant? We have studied your species extensively, little human. We have analyzed your ships, your weapons, your tactics. You are not warriors. You are frightened children playing at being soldiers. The Confederation's allies cheered and clicked and buzzed their approval. Several delegations that had remained neutral now seemed to side with the Vextar position. Jake stood perfectly still, waiting for the noise to subside. Kate's hand moved subtly to touch the small data chip secured at her collar. That chip contained authorization codes that would cascade through every human military installation from Mars to the farthest colonies. Codes that had been locked away since humanity first made contact with alien life. Zelmoth continued speaking, his confidence absolute. The Confederation accepts your terms, human. We accept that within 72 hours your pathetic species will be broken. We will take every colony you possess. We will strip your homeworld of anything valuable. We will make examples of your people that will echo through this galaxy for generations, and when we are finished, the other species will understand what happens to those who challenge us. Jake turned away from the podium. Kate followed immediately. Behind them, the hall erupted in noise again. Some species were arguing. Others were celebrating what they thought would be an easy victory for the Confederation. A very few, looked worried. Those few had perhaps noticed something in Jake's expression. Something in the way he had delivered the warning without any hint of bluff or desperation. As they walked through the corridors leading away from the chamber, Kate finally spoke. They will not withdraw. Jake nodded grimly. No. They believe we are weak. They believe our warning is empty. They have made their choice. Kate's fingers touched the data chip again. Then we activate the protocols? Jake stopped walking and turned to face her. His expression was harder than she had ever seen it. We activate everything. Every facility. Every sealed protocol. Every piece of technology we have kept hidden. Humanity tried to be merciful. We tried to be peaceful. We gave them every chance to step back. They refused. Now they will learn why we were so desperate to avoid this. They reached their transport ship in silence. The vessel was small and unremarkable, exactly the kind of craft that fit the galaxy's image of human technology. Basic engines. Simple weapons. Adequate shields. Nothing to suggest the true capabilities that humanity possessed. Nothing to hint at the industrial complexes hidden beneath Martian mountains or the weapons platforms, disguised as mining stations throughout the asteroid belt. As the ship pulled away from the council station, Jake looked back at the massive structure. Inside that building, representatives from hundreds of species were laughing at humanity's warning. They were celebrating what they thought would be an easy victory for the Confederation. They were making plans based on the assumption that humans were exactly what they appeared to be. Kate activated the secure communication system and entered her authorization codes. The message would reach Earth in seconds. From Earth, it would cascade to Mars, to the moon bases, to the hidden facilities in the outer system, to every colony world where humanity had secretly prepared for this possibility. Protocols that had been sealed for 37 years would unlock. Technologies that the galaxy did not know existed would come online, and the universe would discover what humanity had been hiding all this time. The countdown had begun. 72 hours until the deadline expired. 72 hours for the Confederation to change course. Jake knew they would not. He knew that pride and arrogance would keep them on their current path. He knew that the galaxy was about to learn a lesson that humanity had hoped never to teach. Diplomacy had failed. Now would come the reckoning. Lieutenant Daniel Grant had never seen the inside of a Genesis facility before today. Most people had not. The massive underground complex stretched beneath the Nevada desert for kilometers in every direction, hidden so deep that even the most advanced orbital sensors would never detect it. For 37 years, this place had been silent and dark. Now every light blazed. Every system hummed with power. Every assembly line roared back to life after decades of forced sleep. Captain Lisa Chen stood beside Daniel on the observation deck high above the main production floor. Below them, enormous bay doors opened one after another in perfect sequence. Machines that looked like they belonged in a science fiction dream began moving with purpose. Robot arms larger than houses reached for materials that seemed to appear from nowhere. Assembly stations the size of city blocks lit up in synchronized patterns. Lisa spoke quietly, her voice barely audible over the industrial symphony below. This is what we kept hidden from the galaxy. This is what we promised ourselves we would never use again. This is the reason we pretended to be weak. Daniel had studied the history in military academy, though many of the details remained classified even to officers. Before humanity made contact with alien life, before the galactic community discovered Earth, human civilization had nearly destroyed itself. The resource wars had pushed technology forward in desperate and dangerous directions. Scientists working under impossible pressure had made breakthroughs that changed everything. Quantum manufacturing, exotic matter manipulation, molecular assembly at scales that seemed impossible. When the wars finally ended, when humanity stood on the edge of extinction and somehow pulled back, governments around the world made a pact. They would lock away the most dangerous technologies. They would seal the facilities that could produce weapons of unimaginable power. They would give themselves time to heal, to become better, to prove they could be trusted with such capabilities. Then came first contact. The galactic community arrived with ships that seemed advanced and weapons that seemed formidable. Humanity looked at what the galaxy had to offer and made a choice. They would hide their true capabilities. They would present themselves as a modest power with adequate but unremarkable technology. They would build ships that worked but were not impressive. They would develop weapons that were functional but not fearsome. Lisa turned from the observation window to face Daniel directly. The ships we showed the galaxy were real, but they were deliberately limited. Real warships are built differently. Real weapons use principles that most species have never explored. Real armor incorporates materials that should not exist according to conventional physics. Daniel watched as the first components of a warship began taking shape on the assembly floor far below. The process was nothing like conventional manufacturing. Quantum printers materialized hull sections atom by atom, building materials with properties specifically designed for their purpose. What would take years in a normal shipyard was happening in hours here. What should require thousands of workers was being accomplished by automated systems of stunning sophistication. All across Earth and throughout the solar system, similar facilities were waking up. Mars had 3 Genesis complexes buried deep beneath Olympus Mons. The asteroid belt contained manufacturing stations that had been disguised as simple mining operations for decades. Even some of the colony worlds had sealed facilities that were now receiving their activation codes and roaring back to life. Colonel Ryan Tucker arrived on the observation deck carrying a data tablet. He had spent 20 years working with the galactic community's military exchange programs. He had taught alien officers about human tactics. He had learned about their weapons and strategies. All of it had been part of maintaining the illusion. Now he was back in his real role, coordinating the awakening of humanity's true military power. Ryan checked his tablet and spoke with calm efficiency. The first battle group will be operational in 30 hours. We have 62 hours remaining until the deadline expires. Intelligence reports indicate the Confederation is mobilizing their fleets. They are planning a massive assault on our outer colonies. They believe we are bluffing. Daniel returned his attention to the assembly floor below. The warship taking shape there looked nothing like the vessels that represented humanity to the galaxy. Those ships were blocky and practical. This ship was sleek and predatory, where human diplomatic vessels had adequate armor. This ship had quantum plating that could redistribute energy across its entire structure. Where standard ships had plasma cannons, this ship mounted exotic matter weapons that could ignore conventional shields entirely. In the civilian sectors of Earth and the colonies, news feeds were showing reactions from across the galaxy. Most species expressed complete confidence that the Confederation would crush human resistance easily. Military analysts from a dozen different civilizations explained in detail why humanity's warning was empty. Cultural experts discussed how humans were clearly bluffing to save face before their inevitable defeat. Commander Amy Liu entered the observation deck. She had helped design many of the systems now coming online. She had spent decades maintaining sealed facilities, making sure they would work if ever needed, hoping that day would never come. Her expression showed no satisfaction at being proven necessary, only grim determination to see the job done. Amy consulted her own tablet before speaking. We have 15 Genesis facilities fully operational. Another 23 will be online within the next 12 hours. Current production capacity is exceeding our projections. We will have 200 battle-ready warships before the deadline expires. If we push the systems, we could have 300. Lisa asked the next logical question. What about crews? We can build ships faster than any civilization in the galaxy, but we still need people to operate them." Amy smiled slightly. "Reserve forces are being activated across all human territories. We have enough trained personnel to crew 500 vessels immediately. Most of them served before first contact, back when we still maintained our real military. They have been living normal lives, working normal jobs, raising families. But they remember their training. They remember what human warships can do." Daniel thought about his own grandfather, who had served during the final years of the resource wars. The old man had told stories that seemed impossible. Battles fought with weapons that could crack planets. Tactical decisions made in microseconds by computer systems linked directly to human minds. Fleets that could cross star systems in days rather than weeks. A species that had learned to wage war with terrifying efficiency because survival demanded nothing less. Ryan spoke again, his voice quiet but firm. "We warned them. We gave them every opportunity to withdraw. We explained that we were holding back. We told them what would happen if they pushed us too far. They laughed at us. They mocked our warnings. They thought restraint meant weakness. The facility's noise level increased as more production lines came online. Everywhere Daniel looked, machines were building components for the fleet that would soon deploy. Weapons systems that incorporated technologies the galaxy had never seen. Defensive systems that would make conventional attacks useless. Engines that could push ships to speeds that should not be possible. Lisa walked along the observation deck to get a better view of a different section of the facility. Below that section, smaller craft were taking shape. Fighters and interceptors and assault ships, each one equipped with systems that would revolutionize combat in space. Each one crewed by pilots who had trained in secret, maintaining skills that the galaxy believed humans did not possess. Amy brought up a holographic display showing the status of Genesis facilities across human space. Green indicators were appearing one after another as each complex reached full operational status. The display also showed conventional shipyards ramping up production of support vessels. Humanity was not just activating its hidden weapons, it was mobilizing its entire industrial capacity for war. Colonel Tucker received a message on his tablet and read it carefully before speaking. "Command has confirmed the deployment schedule. First wave launches in 28 hours. They will take up positions throughout our territory. The Confederation will see them on sensors and will probably think they are our standard vessels. They will not realize what they are facing until it is too late." Daniel watched the warship below reach 70% completion. In a few more hours it would be finished. In a day it would be in space. In 2 days it would be part of a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. The galactic community had enjoyed peace for so long that most species had forgotten what real war looked like. They were about to remember. The observation deck fell silent as everyone present contemplated what was coming. They had all hoped to avoid this moment. They had all believed that hiding humanity's strength would protect the galaxy from human capacity for destruction. But the Confederation had made its choice. The deadline was counting down, and now the galaxy would learn the truth. Humanity had been holding back. The restraints were coming off, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Confederation fleet assembled at the edge of human space exactly 60 hours after the ultimatum had been delivered. Admiral Zelmoth commanded from his flagship, a massive vessel called the Dominion that had never known defeat in 3 decades of service. Around him, 200 warships took their positions in perfect formation. It was the largest force the Confederation had deployed in over a century. It should have been more than enough to crush human resistance completely. The target was a human colony called New Perth, a settlement of 3 million people on a marginal world at the very edge of explored space. Intelligence reports suggested minimal defenses, perhaps a dozen patrol craft, maybe a single orbital defense station. Standard procedure would be to overwhelm them quickly, capture the population, and use the colony as a staging point for deeper strikes into human territory. Zelmoth settled into his command throne and gave the order. "Begin the assault. Show these primitive creatures what happens when they dare to defy the Confederation. Make this quick and brutal. I want the entire galaxy to see what awaits those who challenge us." The fleet moved forward in formation, weapons charging, shields at maximum power. Every ship's crew was confident. They had studied human vessels. They had analyzed human tactics. They knew exactly what to expect. This would not be a battle. This would be an execution followed by an occupation. The deadline had expired 3 hours ago. Humanity had not withdrawn its ridiculous demands. Now they would learn the price of pride. Then the sensor officer spoke, his voice cracking with confusion that bordered on panic. "Admiral, we have contact. Multiple contacts. They are appearing throughout the system. 300 signatures. No, 500. The numbers are still climbing. They are not registering on standard detection protocols. They just materialized as if they had been invisible." Zelmoth leaned forward, his mandibles spreading in irritation. "That is impossible. Show me the tactical display immediately." The main view screen changed to show the sensor data. Red markers were appearing across the entire system. Ships were emerging from positions that should have been empty space. They were smaller than Confederation vessels, but far more numerous. And they were moving with a precision that seemed inhuman. Perfect formations. Instant coordination. Response times measured in milliseconds rather than seconds. On the bridge of the human flagship Reckoning, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the Confederation fleet with cold satisfaction. Kate Sullivan stood beside him, no longer wearing the formal attire of a diplomat, but instead dressed in the practical uniform of a tactical advisor. Around them, the most advanced warship humanity had ever built hummed with barely restrained power. Kate spoke quietly. "They took the bait. They thought New Perth was vulnerable. They believed we had no defenses here." Jake nodded once. "Open a communication channel to the Confederation flagship. I am required to give them one final opportunity to withdraw. Let it never be said that humanity did not offer every chance for peace." The communication link established instantly, bypassing every layer of Confederation encryption, as if those security measures did not exist. Jake's face appeared on view screens throughout the enemy fleet. His expression was calm and completely impassive. "Admiral Zelmoth, you were warned. You chose not to listen. I am offering you one final opportunity to withdraw your forces. Leave human space immediately, and you will be allowed to retreat without further engagement. This offer expires in 60 seconds. Zelmoth's laughter echoed across the open channel. His mandibles clacked together in what his species considered a gesture of supreme contempt. "You dare threaten us with your pathetic ships? Even with numbers on your side, you cannot hope to match our firepower. Your weapons are inferior. Your armor is weak. Your technology is generations behind ours. This ends now." Jake's expression did not change even slightly. "Very well, you have made your choice. Remember in the moments to come that we gave you every opportunity to avoid this. Remember that we tried diplomacy. Remember that we offered peace. What happens next is entirely your responsibility." The channel closed. Jake turned to his weapons officer. "Commander Grant, you may engage when ready." Daniel Grant sat at the weapons console with steady hands. He had trained for this moment his entire career. First in the old military before contact, then in the reserves during the years of hiding. Now finally back in active service for this necessary revelation. His fingers moved across controls that would have seemed like magic to any other species in the galaxy. Targeting solutions are locked across all vessels. The fleet reports ready for engagement. Weapons are charged and standing by. Jake gave the order with quiet finality. Fire. The human fleet opened fire as a single coordinated entity. Exotic matter projectiles crossed the distance between the two fleets in microseconds, moving faster than anything the Confederation had ever encountered. The rounds did not simply pierce shields. They passed through defensive barriers as if those shields did not exist, as if the fundamental laws of physics had been temporarily rewritten just for them. The Dominion's shields collapsed under the first volley. Armor plating that had withstood plasma fire and kinetic impacts for 3 decades simply ceased to exist as exotic matter rewrote its molecular structure. Secondary explosions rippled through the massive vessel as power conduits overloaded and containment systems failed. The flagship of the Confederation fleet was crippled in the first 10 seconds of engagement. Across the Confederation formation, similar devastation was unfolding. Point defense systems fired desperately at projectiles that ignored every conventional countermeasure. Electronic warfare packages attempted to jam targeting systems that did not use frequencies those packages had been designed to disrupt. Commanders screamed orders based on tactics that had worked for centuries, only to watch those tactics fail completely against an enemy they did not understand. Zelmoth pulled himself upright despite the chaos engulfing his bridge. Return fire! Destroy them! Every ship concentrate all weapons on their flagship. The Confederation fleet unleashed everything it had. Plasma cannons that could melt through meters of conventional armor, railguns that could punch holes through asteroids, missiles with warheads that burned hotter than stars, energy beams that could slice capital ships in half. Every weapon system that had made the Confederation the dominant military power in their region of space fired simultaneously at the human vessels. For a brief moment, it seemed like the sheer volume of firepower might be enough. The space between the two fleets lit up with weapons discharge. Sensors overloaded, trying to track the amount of energy being released. Then the smoke cleared and the human ships were still there, completely intact and continuing their methodical assault. The quantum armor, plating on human vessels, redistributed incoming energy across their entire hull structure so efficiently that concentrated fire became diffused impact. What little damage penetrated the primary armor encountered secondary systems designed to route power away from critical areas and seal breaches before they could compromise ship integrity. The human fleet continued its assault without even slowing down. Jake watched his tactical display with grim satisfaction. Status report. Lisa Chen, now commanding the Tactical Coordination Division, checked her station's readouts. 87 Confederation vessels disabled or destroyed. 96 more have sustained critical damage. Our fleet has taken only superficial hits. No casualties reported. All systems operating within normal parameters. Jake nodded. Adjust targeting priorities. Focus on their command ships and carriers. Let them understand exactly what they are facing. Let them see that this was never going to be a battle. This is a demonstration. The human fleet shifted its fire with perfect precision. One by one, the largest and most important Confederation vessels began to fall. Each loss was calculated. Each strike was measured. Every shot demonstrated a level of tactical sophistication that should have required hours of planning but was happening in real time within human coordination. Zelmoth watched, his fleet die around him with growing horror. This was not how battles worked. This was not warfare as any species in the galaxy understood it. The humans were not fighting. They were executing. They were dismantling the Confederation fleet with the casual efficiency of someone taking apart a broken machine. All ships, retreat, fall back to the jump point. His order came too late. Half his fleet was already destroyed. The survivors were scattered, their formation broken, their morale shattered. Ships that had entered the system confident in their superiority were now fleeing in panic. Jake watched the retreat begin. He could have destroyed them all. His fleet had the capability. His orders technically allowed it. But humanity had not revealed itself to become monsters. They were defenders who had been pushed too far, not conquerors looking for excuses to slaughter. Let them go. Allow the retreat. But Commander Sullivan, transmit our message to every surviving Confederation vessel. Let them carry this warning back to their leaders and to every species that doubted us. Kate activated the transmission system. The message would be recorded by every sensor, every communication system, every data recorder on every Confederation ship. It would spread across the galaxy within days. And it would change everything. You were warned. This is what happens when warnings are ignored. Humanity. The Galactic Council chamber had never been this quiet. On the massive central display, battle footage played for the third time. Footage transmitted from Confederation ships. Footage showing the systematic destruction of one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces by vessels that the galaxy had believed were primitive and weak. Every delegate watched in stunned silence as human warships moved with impossible precision and fired weapons that ignored every known defensive technology. Ambassador Helen Carter stood at the speaker's podium, representing Earth for the first time since the battle at New Perth. The atmosphere in the chamber was completely different from what Admiral Morrison had faced weeks earlier. There was no mockery now. No contempt, no dismissive laughter. Instead, there was fear and uncertainty and a desperate need for answers. The Krill ambassador spoke first, his multiple limbs trembling slightly in a display of agitation. His species could not easily control. You lied to us for 37 years. You presented yourselves as a minor power with limited capabilities. You claimed your technology was modest and your military was small. All of it was deception. All of it was lies. Helen met the ambassador's gaze with complete calm. We never lied. We simply chose not to reveal everything we were capable of achieving. Just as every species in this chamber keeps secrets from their neighbors, just as every government maintains classified programs and hidden capabilities, the difference is that our secrets were designed to protect others from us, not to threaten them. A representative from the Tal Shek Collective spoke next, her crystalline form shimmering with emotional distress. Protection? You call this protection? You have weapons that make our shields useless. You have ships that our sensors cannot properly detect. You demonstrated the ability to build an entire fleet in days when it should take us years. How is any of that protection? Helen activated a data projection that filled the air above the council floor. The display showed Earth's history in compressed form. Wars that had nearly destroyed human civilization, weapons that had scarred the planet, technologies that humans had barely understood and could hardly control. Casualties measured in hundreds of millions. Cities reduced to radioactive wastelands, a species teetering on the edge of extinction. This is why we hid our capabilities. Before we joined your community, humanity was destroying itself. We developed weapons we could barely control. We created technologies that terrified us even as we deployed them. When we finally achieved peace, it was fragile and hard-won and purchased with unimaginable suffering. When you made first contact with us, we saw an opportunity to be something better than what we had been. She paused and let the historical images fade from the display. We made a choice. We chose to seal away our most dangerous technologies. We chose to present ourselves as peaceful and unassuming. We chose to appear weaker than we were because we wanted to be accepted rather than feared. We wanted to prove that we could coexist peacefully with other species. We wanted to show that power did not have to mean domination. The chamber remained silent as delegates processed what they were hearing. Back on Earth, similar conversations were happening in every major city and settlement. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy, and now everyone was struggling to understand what that revelation meant. Colonel Alex Jordan sat in a briefing room at Luna Command, reviewing tactical analyses with his staff. Every military force in the galaxy wanted to understand how humanity had achieved what seemed impossible. The battle at New Perth was being studied in war colleges on 200 worlds. Everyone wanted to know how human technology worked and whether it could be countered. Dr. Sarah Kim, head of Advanced Weapons Research, highlighted sections of her report. The exotic matter weapons are the primary advantage. They operate on principles that most galactic civilizations have not explored or even theorized about. We developed them during the resource wars out of pure desperation. They work by temporarily altering the quantum state of targeted matter, which makes conventional shields completely irrelevant. Alex studied the technical data carefully. And the armor? The quantum plating that seems to make our ships nearly invulnerable? Sarah brought up additional schematics. The armor we showed the galaxy before was real but deliberately primitive. True quantum armor redistributes kinetic and thermal energy across the entire hull structure. A focused hit on one section becomes a dispersed impact shared by every armor plate on the ship. It is nearly impossible to concentrate enough damage on a single point to achieve penetration. Captain Nicole Ryan, who commanded fleet operations, added her perspective. The manufacturing capacity is what truly frightens them. We went from 0 combat-ready vessels to 500 in less than a week. The Genesis facilities operate at speeds and efficiency levels that the galaxy cannot match. That alone changes the strategic balance of power. Back in the Galactic Council, Zelmoth himself had been summoned to give testimony. The former admiral stood before his peers with his antennae drooping in shame. His flagship had survived the battle, but his career and reputation had not. The Confederation acted on incomplete intelligence. His voice carried none of its former arrogance. We believed humanity was weak because they presented themselves as weak. We believed their restraint indicated inability rather than choice. We were catastrophically wrong. I lost over 100 ships and thousands of crew members because we did not listen to their warnings. Helen watched the fallen admiral with something approaching sympathy. She had reviewed the casualty reports. The Confederation had suffered losses that would take decades to replace. It was a devastating blow that could have been entirely avoided if they had simply taken humanity's warning seriously. The question now facing this council is what happens next. Helen addressed the assembled delegates directly. Humanity does not seek conquest. We do not desire to dominate the galaxy. We simply want to exist in peace and safety, but we will not tolerate aggression against our people. We will not accept being treated as prey. Any species that attacks human interest will face the full extent of what we have been holding back. Several ambassadors exchanged worried glances. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. Humanity, once dismissed as a minor player barely worthy of membership, was now revealed to be potentially the most dangerous military force in known space. Trade agreements would need to be renegotiated. Defense treaties would need to be reconsidered. Diplomatic strategies would need to be completely rewritten. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared via holographic projection, his presence commanding immediate attention even in digital form. I want to be absolutely clear about something that seems to be causing confusion. Humanity does not want war. We have experienced war. We know what it costs. We know what it does to civilizations. We know how it scars planets and destroys futures. That knowledge is why we held back for so long. He paused to let those words settle before continuing. But do not mistake our preference for peace as an inability to wage war effectively. We tried diplomacy first. We issued clear warnings. We gave multiple opportunities for conflicts to be resolved without violence. Those opportunities were rejected. The Confederation chose aggression. They received an appropriate response. Any other species that makes the same choice will receive the same treatment. The message was unmistakable. Humanity was no longer hiding its capabilities. The galaxy would need to adjust to this new reality. Species that had viewed humans as weak prey now saw them as apex predators who had been deliberately restraining themselves. Alliances were being frantically reconsidered. Defense budgets were being drastically revised. Military planners were throwing out decades of strategic assumptions. On the colony world of New Perth, Major Kevin Foster watched as his community celebrated their survival. The battle had been over quickly, but the implications would last for generations. Children who had grown up believing humanity was a minor power now knew the truth. They were part of a species that had chosen restraint over dominance, but would defend itself without hesitation when necessary. His wife, Dr. Patricia Lane, joined him on their apartment's observation deck overlooking the settlement. Everything has changed. She spoke quietly. We cannot go back to pretending. The galaxy knows what we are capable of now. Kevin nodded slowly. The question is whether they will learn to respect that capability or simply fear it. We wanted to be accepted as equals. Now we might be viewed as threats that need to be contained or appeased. Patricia considered that possibility. Perhaps both. Perhaps some species will seek our friendship while others plot against us. Perhaps we will spend the next century proving that we meant what we said about wanting peace. Across the galaxy, that question was being debated in countless languages by countless beings. Humanity had emerged from the shadows it had deliberately maintained for 37 years. The universe had learned that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. And now everyone had to decide how to respond to that knowledge. The age of humanity hiding its strength was over. A new era had begun, and no one could predict exactly where it would lead. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Perth, and the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new equilibrium. The Confederation had paid its reparations in full and withdrawn completely from human space. Several smaller aggressive powers that had been planning expansions into Earth's territory had quietly abandoned those plans. The message had been received across 200 worlds. Humanity was not to be trifled with. The warnings they issued were not empty threats. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in his office aboard the Reckoning, now permanently stationed in orbit around Earth. Through the large viewport, he could see construction yards building new vessels. These were not the hidden warships of the Genesis facilities. These were a new generation of ships designed for the reality that humanity now inhabited. They were formidable and capable, but they were also openly displayed. Visible proof of human commitment to defense rather than conquest. Kate Sullivan entered carrying a data tablet. She had transitioned from her role as diplomatic officer to become special advisor on interspecies relations. Her job now involved helping other civilizations understand humanity's perspective, while ensuring Earth did not make the same mistakes that had nearly destroyed it before first contact. The latest reports. Kate handed him the tablet. 47 species have requested formal security agreements with Earth. 15 more want access to our manufacturing technology. The Talshek Collective is proposing a joint research initiative on quantum systems. Everyone wants to be our ally now. Jake reviewed the information carefully. A year ago, we were being ignored or mocked. Now everyone wants our protection or our secrets. We need to be extremely careful about how we respond to these requests. We did not reveal our capabilities to become galactic overlords or arms dealers. Kate sat down across from him. I agree completely. We revealed our strength because we were forced to defend ourselves. That distinction must remain clear. We are not conquerors. We are not empire builders. We are defenders who will no longer tolerate being treated as prey. On Mars, the Genesis facilities were being partially decommissioned again. The most dangerous technologies were being sealed away with new security measures. Colonel Ryan Tucker oversaw the process personally. This time the galaxy knew those facilities existed. The deterrent value was in the knowledge that humanity could mobilize that industrial capacity again if necessary. Actually, keeping hundreds of warships active would send the wrong message. Commander Lisa Chen worked alongside him, coordinating with colony defense forces across human space. They were establishing a new military doctrine, one that balanced deterrence with cooperation. The goal was ensuring no one would test humanity's resolve again, while simultaneously demonstrating that Earth remained genuinely committed to peaceful coexistence. We are walking an incredibly delicate line, Lisa observed as they toured one of the facility levels. Too much restraint and we appear weak again. Too much visible power and we appear to be preparing for conquest. Finding the right balance is critical. Ryan nodded in agreement. That is exactly why transparency matters now. Let the galaxy see what we have. Let them understand our capabilities clearly, but also let them see that we only deploy those capabilities for legitimate defense. When we say we will not attack unprovoked, we must mean it absolutely. When we say we will defend ourselves, that must be equally absolute. Ambassador Helen Carter had become one of the most influential voices in the Galactic Council. Her speeches about humanity's journey from near extinction to galactic power resonated with many species. She spoke not of dominance but of survival, not of conquest but of coexistence, not of revenge but of mutual respect, earned through demonstrated capability. During a major council session attended by representatives from over 300 civilizations, she addressed the assembled delegates with carefully chosen words. Humanity learned terrible lessons before joining your community. We learned what happens when species fight without restraint or mercy. We nearly destroyed ourselves completely. When we met you, when you welcomed us into the galactic community, we chose to hide our weapons because we were genuinely afraid of becoming monsters again. Gestured toward the tactical displays that showed archived footage from the Battle of New Perth, but hiding our strength did not make us safe. It made us targets. It encouraged aggression. We were forced to choose between revealing what we were truly capable of or allowing our people to be enslaved and slaughtered. We chose to defend ourselves, and in doing so, we showed the galaxy what humanity actually is. We are not monsters, but we are absolutely not victims either. We are survivors who will do whatever is necessary to ensure our continued survival. Lieutenant Daniel Grant had been promoted to commander after demonstrating exceptional performance during the battle. He now led training programs for allied species who wanted to understand human tactical doctrine. It was delicate work. Humanity needed to share enough information to build genuine trust, but not so much that their technological advantages disappeared entirely. Captain Amy Lou worked alongside him, overseeing selective technology transfers to trusted allies. They were sharing some manufacturing techniques with civilizations that had proven themselves reliable, while keeping the most critical systems strictly under human control. The quantum printer technology that made Genesis facilities possible remained completely proprietary. Trust is a gradual process that cannot be rushed, Amy explained to a delegation of Krill engineers who were visiting a human research facility. We cannot share everything immediately just because you ask, but as our alliance deepens, as we prove to each other that we share fundamental values and goals, greater cooperation becomes possible and beneficial for everyone. The Krill delegation listened with genuine respect. These were the same beings whose representatives had mocked humanity's capabilities just months earlier. They had witnessed what happened to the Confederation. They understood that humanity's offer of partnership was valuable precisely because the alternative was terrifying. On New Perth, Major Kevin Foster and Dr. Patricia Lane were raising their children in a fundamentally transformed galaxy. Their daughter Emma attended school with students from a dozen different species. The colony that had nearly been destroyed was now a powerful symbol of human resilience and a model for genuine interspecies cooperation. Emma came home from school one afternoon with questions. Her teachers had been discussing the battle again, explaining what had happened and why. She wanted to understand why humanity had hidden its strength for such a long time. Kevin chose his words carefully. We hid because we were afraid of ourselves, afraid of what we might become if we embraced our full capabilities. We wanted desperately to be accepted by the galaxy, not feared or hated, so we pretended to be weaker than we actually were. Emma thought about that for a moment. But you are strong. Why would that be scary to anyone? Patricia knelt beside their daughter. Strength is only frightening when it is used to hurt people who do not deserve it. We wanted to prove that we could be powerful and kind at the same time. That we could have incredible capabilities and choose not to abuse them. That we could be trusted with weapons that could destroy planets. Emma nodded slowly. So we are strong, but we are also nice? Kevin smiled at the simplification. That is the goal we are working toward. We are strong enough to protect ourselves and our allies. But we are also committed to offering peace and cooperation first. We only fight when we absolutely must. But when we do fight, we fight to win decisively. Back on Earth, Admiral Morrison was preparing for retirement. He had served humanity well through the most critical transition in modern history. But the time had come for new leadership. Younger officers who understood both the old, fearful humanity and the new confident. Humanity would guide the military into whatever challenges lay ahead. Kate would remain as advisor for a few more years before stepping back herself. They had done what was necessary. They had protected humanity when protection was desperately needed. They had revealed the truth when hiding it would have meant extinction. Now others would build on the foundation they had established. In his final address to the assembled fleet, Jake spoke with the accumulated wisdom of a long career. We revealed ourselves because we had absolutely no choice. But in doing so, we gave the galaxy an unexpected gift. We showed them that strength does not automatically require cruelty, that power does not inevitably demand conquest, that a species can be both formidable and fundamentally peaceful. We proved that humanity learned from our terrible mistakes without forgetting the hard lessons those mistakes taught us. He paused to look at the faces of young officers who would carry humanity's complex legacy forward into an uncertain future. The reckoning came because diplomacy failed. But from that violent reckoning came genuine understanding. The galaxy now knows precisely what we are capable of achieving. They know we strongly prefer peace but absolutely will not accept subjugation. They know we are willing to share our strength with true allies while defending our legitimate interests against any aggressor. Most importantly, they know that humanity always keeps its word. When we warn, we mean it completely. When we offer friendship, we honor it absolutely. And when we fight to win. As Admiral Morrison stepped down from command, he looked out.